Hello everybody, it's the 6th of April today, and I'm looking at a couple of my Chinese Wisteria. Not the ones I grew from seed last year. I will feature those in a separate video, but a couple that I bought online during lockdown and things that I've been growing on. They haven't flowered yet, although maybe they will this year. I have no idea. They'll surprise me, I guess, when they do. This one is really shooting away quite nicely now, and I've kept it kind of small and compact, and it's in a kind of leaning style. Need to remove a couple of these weeds. Particular weed is, but it has the most prettiest little delicate. Probably the camera can't pick that up, but it's a pretty little white flower. Of course, we don't really want it to flower because it's so prolific. It turns up in every pot I've got. And it roots quite deeply and perniciously, and is quite difficult to eradicate. So I don't really want it to flower, because flower begets seed, and seed begets more of the little blighters. But at the same time, it's nice little flower that, as I say, if it wasn't that it popped up in every pot everywhere, I wouldn't mind so much. You could almost imagine that as a little flowering shrub underneath a tree, but there you go. So what am I going to do with this one? This one, I have a piece here which I'm growing as a sacrifice branch, so I'm going to leave that be, but I'm going to trim this long shoot here back, like so. And I'd actually like the tree to come back. I'm not going to repot it, but I would like it to come back on itself a little more, so I'm going to try and position that cane so that the tree is given a little bit more movement. Okay, so that's about it. Let's give you a 360 with the cam in. Sacrifice branch, a little help up the cane, and I'll probably need to find it somewhere where it can catch a hold of and train up something else as well, but for now that's about it for this one. We'll look at the next one. Okay, so this is the second one, which has been sat all winter in its little place by the pond. It had a good trim back, and it's just now beginning to burst into life. It's a little bit more advanced than the other one, but again, I haven't had any flowers from them yet. That's the problem when you buy plants online. You don't know whether you're going to get a flowering plant straight away or not. At least if you go to a garden centre at the right time of year, at least you can buy one in flower. But pull all these pernicious weeds out, you can see the trunk a little better. And you might be wondering what's up with these bits here, but these bits here are actually attached to these bits here, which in turn are sitting in this pot here and have been rooting, I hope. So I'm going to cut those 4 shoots, and we will see whether I have 4 rooted plants in this pot. And they certainly grew a plenty, and they've helped to flatten up the base of this trunk quite nicely. So I'm quite pleased with the shape on this one. Again, I'm not going to repot it this year. It's in a big deep holed pot, and it's already given me quite a nice shape. going to let it grow a little longer, a little taller rather, this year, and continue to grow this head. And you never know, it might flower, or it might be next year, or the year after, or Wisteria being slow to flower from seed, and who knows whether this was grown from seed or a cutting. It may take a few more years than that. At any rate, it's going to make a nice looking tree even if it doesn't flower, I feel. Excuse the messy pond. I do need to clear out that pond. So I've had almost no luck ever with air layering trees and plants. So I tried to ground layer these shoots and to encourage them to keep growing, just round themselves for want of anything to grab hold of, which they conveniently did. And then these stems were weighted into this pot of compost, and we will see how many and how well they rooted. I'm thinking about putting these together in a kind of fusion project, but with only 4. Doesn't give you a lot of options, but I thought I could do them as a kind of exposed root. I'm going to have to cut the top off, it's going to drive me nuts otherwise. And as they're all of a pretty much all of a thickness all the way through, I need to chop it back to give it some taper anyway, so I'll just lose all of that top growth. And also, so that I don't get confused, all of this bottom growth. Okay. This one has definitely rooted. In fact, they all have rooted, which is good. So I'll just clean off the soil and then we'll have a look at what we've got. So I'm going to start these Wisteria off in this large pot, and I'm going to put a layer in the bottom of just ordinary potting compost, and the top layer will be a compost organic heavy mix of cat litter, grit and cat litter. No, said that over. What am I talking about? Organic heavy mix of potting grit and cat litter. And then when I do repot out of this, hopefully the surface roots will be in that cat littery mix. And I can just cut away the multi-purpose to get it into a shallower pot, if that sort of makes sense. I'm not even sure I spoke English for some of that, but there you are. So this is my organic mix. I use this for willows, for wisteria and for alders and the like, and there's a lot more organic compost in this than there is in my regular mix I use for most deciduous trees, and for pines and things I use even less. But so a layer of that, a good layer of a good handful in fact of controlled release fertilizer. This will feed the trees for the first 3 months, and then I'll need to do a liquid feed top up later in the summer, but I prefer to switch over to a more potash based feed then anyway. So I'm not actually going to do much in the way of root pruning, but what I am going to do is try and, let me move you in so you can see what I'm doing. So let's get rid of that stem, and then I'm going to try and place it so that the roots are outwards, and then I can bring in another tree. And another. Like so. And this is one of those jobs where if you had 3 hands it would be so much easier. Okay, and the rain's starting. Just to be less helpful, and so I'm just going to grab an odd piece of wire and just hold those like so. Okay, so as I say, I don't have really a root exposed root tree, and I certainly haven't really seen an exposed root Wisteria, and I think it might be interesting, so that's what I'm aiming for. So didn't want to fill those roots, bury those roots too deeply, and this mix is heavy enough that it will actually hold those roots quite nicely in place. Once I've given it a water, I should be able to then manipulate these trunks a little to where I want them to give me a slightly more upright tree. And I'm going to try and sort of plait them. If I can just bend that through without breaking it. That's the great thing with Wisteria, is that they are so pliable and flexible. Okay, so I think that might be interesting. I can remove that piece of wire from, no, let's leave it for a minute. I'm going to shorten these back to a bud. Oops. Never enough hands. There's an outside facing bud there. Where's a bud on this taller one? There. So I'm sorry, my arm's going to be in the way for a lot of this. So I haven't wound that wire around tightly. I'm going to allow these trees to grow and swell without a race to fuse, so that they will grow and hold in this position, maybe even for the entire season, and then next year we can race to get a bit of fusion. So I don't know if I can pull that root around, and if I can change that one's position. what might be interesting is to put a little bend in that root there. Okay, so a little bit of wrestling, and I put some wire on off camera because I was conscious that I was actually obscuring what I was doing for portions of the video, which is a bit boring for you guys to watch. Okay, so there we have it. As I said, I haven't wired them tightly together. I want them to grow a little more, and then they'll grow into this wire. Sometimes if you try and fuse things that are very thin, I've found that they will actually, the wire will cut into a tree first, and then they kind of act like a secateurs, like a pair of scissors almost, and the wire will cut in, and the top will fall off, if that makes sense. So basically what I've got is a kind of four-legged, weird looking thing, and I'm quite pleased with it. Is it traditional? No, not really. Is it bonsai? Probably not. Did I have fun? Yes. And will I enjoy looking at it in years to come? I hope so. All these and more questions will be answered as the years go by. So these are the 5 Chinese wisteria seedlings that I got to grow from the seeds that I was sent, and thank you once again. As you can see, this one grew very, very well, really quite strongly, and then and this one has done, well, it grew, it didn't rot, so I can't really complain. Now, what am I going to do with these this year? Nothing much. I might pot them up into some bigger pots, but that's about it. So I just want them to grow on, and I don't want to fuse them because well, they're going to be genetically all very different, as opposed to these other ones that I'm fusing that should all be genetically identical. Quick shot with the Canon for scale, just to give you an idea of where we're going with this. So that's it. Just time to say thank you so much for watching. Do all the usual YouTube things, the liking, the subscribing, the commenting below, but most of all, please stay safe, everybody.